Hi everyone, welcome to your next video lecture for intercultural communication. In this video, we are going to answer the question, how can we be more interculturally competent? One of the things we're striving for this semester is to be successfully competent intercultural communicators, which raises the question, how do we do that? Right? We can define the words all we want, but we have to have some practical ways to understand different communication skills and different communication behaviors that we can adjust and change that will allow us to be more competent. So in this lecture, we're going to do one thing. We're going to break down the 5 components of intercultural competency that allows us to move forward throughout the semester adhering to these components. Let's go ahead and get started and break down these 5 components of intercultural competence. Reminder that to define intercultural competence or intercultural communication competence, ICC, that is, competent communication is the interaction that is perceived as effective in fulfilling certain rewarding objectives in a way that is also appropriate to the context in which that interaction occurs. So it's not just that we've communicated in a way that creates shared meaning. Intercultural communication competence is creating or communicating in a way that creates shared meaning that is both effective and appropriate, right? So those are going to be 2 key words that we really need to make sure we pull out of that definition. But that is only one of the 5 different ways that we can really focus on increasing our intercultural competence. So let's go ahead and look at appropriateness and effectiveness in relationship to the other 4 components that it shares a framework with. So the first component is context. We've discussed context already this semester when we defined communication. And we understand that it's very important to understand the context from which or in which an interaction is occurring. Competence then requires that we recognize and understand the information that is surrounding the encounter, right? And so the image on the screen, I think, is a great depiction of this, because essentially what's happening is Perkins does not understand the context that he walked into, right? There is an expectation in a corporate setting that appropriate attire would be worn, and Perkins did not fulfill that expectation because he didn't properly understand the context. Now, importantly, we have to give Perkins a little bit of slack here, because there is no prescriptive set of characteristics. There is no set of rules that describes what happens across every context, because contexts are so different. A really great example of this is shown in the cartoon at an exotic restaurant. Would you be interested in our house special, broiled cat, which the respondents go, oh, how cruel, how barbaric, how disgusting. We also have roasted dog. Oh, how cruel, how barbaric, how disgusting. How about some lamb chops? Oh, how yummy, how delicious. Because the context here is that for these 2 individuals, these 2 patrons, it would be inappropriate based on what they believe, based on what they value, to eat, to consume cat or dog, but lamb, different system there, different beliefs, different values for that animal, which is affecting the context. It's affecting the way that they're understanding the situation. In this restaurant, it is probably very normal to eat broiled. The second component of competence is looking at the appropriateness and the effectiveness, which we saw prominently positioned in the definition. So these are important concepts when it comes to competency. Appropriateness is behaviors that are regarded as proper and suitable given the expectations created or generated by a given culture. So whatever it is that the culture expects, do the behaviors align to that as proper and suitable? This is contrasted with effective, which are behaviors that achieve the desired outcomes. So essentially, effectiveness and appropriateness is like asking the question, is the communication right based on what we know about that culture? And does the communication work in getting across to them the message we wanted to get across? These are important questions when it comes to studying intercultural competency, because is it right and does it work is going to be based so heavily on the beliefs, the values, the norms, and the social practices that are operating under the surface for those different cultures. And so what's really going on here is that we might not know what is right, and we might not know if it will work. That's the game. That's why we study culture. Because the only way to communicate in a way that is appropriate and effective is to understand that there is a right way to do this. There is a best way to communicate with this culture, and there is a way that is going to get across what I want to get across. The job then of the interculturally competent communicator is to figure out what are these communication behaviors. A lot of that is going to be based on knowledge that the communicator has about the culture. Knowledge, exactly as you would expect it to be, is cognitive information you have about the people, the context, and the norms of appropriateness. So this is, you know that there is going to be you have to figure out within the context what is appropriate and what is effective, and you're going to base those decisions on knowledge that you have or that you can obtain. We divide knowledge into two different things, two different kind of scopes. We have knowledge that is general knowledge, information that applies to everyone in some way, right? And we also have specific knowledge, which is information that is more geared toward a specific culture. So this is like knowing that all cultures greet someone. They all have a greeting, but not all cultures greet people in the same way. For instance, in the Midwest, it's very normal to use a one-finger wave while driving down the highway. If you did this in New York or in Washington or Oregon or California, you might get some really, really peculiar gazes, because this is relying on specific knowledge that you have about that culture, while general knowledge is just knowledge that exists about cultures kind of broadly, right? All cultures are going to greet people, all cultures eat food, all cultures have relationships. We just don't know the specifics yet about the pinpointed culture that we're looking at. So let's go ahead and check out some other ways that cultures, specific cultures, greet each other.
This is how we greet in Ethiopia.
Hala, Ahlin.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cómo te ha ido? Salamna, Dena, Dana Darkway, Dana Mashaway.
People greet each other in India.
जब हम किसी से मिलते हैं तो हम नमस्ते करके मिलते हैं.
Assalamu alaikum. Like Sikh people, they do like Sat Sri Akal.
Unfortunately to say it, as cliched as it is, we do use g'day a lot, or mate. We're not particularly formal.
Hola, si estoy con amigos. なんかって感じになるかな。いたって。
ก็ในไทยเหรอเราไม่ค่อยขยับมือกันเท่าไหร่ Man gibt als Erster die Hand, wenn man jünger ist. Hallo, mein Name ist das und das. Dann sagt man zuerst Hallo und wartet darauf, dass diejenige die Hand anbietet. คนที่อายุมากกว่าเจอพ่อแม่เจอคุณครูเจอคนที่เราเคารพด้วยก็จะแบบสวัสดีค่ะอย่างนี้ค่ะ
Don. Cuando te estás hablando a una persona que es como más importante o está más arriba, buenos días, Don Pepito. Quelqu'un qu'on connaît, que ce soit un homme ou une femme, on lui fait la bise.
Questo era, come dicevo prima, i baci sulle due guance, che è il tipico saluto.
Ça peut être deux, so. Ou quatre. When the person continues, so it's rude to say no, okay, no, he continue until he stop. Mais quatre, c'est vraiment très très long.
几乎不亲吻，因为在中国就是如果两个女孩亲吻或者两个男生亲吻的话，会认为是一件很奇怪的事情。
Depending on who it is, a hello, a smile. Generally, I give hugs.
On se prend pas du tout dans les bras. C'est quelque chose d'assez intime en fait. On le réserve qu'aux amis proches.
だからってね、こうハグしたくない人に対しては別にこう、無理やりハグするっていうこともしないですね。
I think hugging is becoming a really big thing, like just even amongst like guys, yeah.
แต่ว่าถ้าเจอเพื่อนปกติเราจะกอดกันมากกว่าค่ะเพราะว่าส่วนตัวก็อยู่ในสังคมหญิงล้วนมาตลอดเจอเพื่อนก็จะเพื่อนผู้หญิงของเราเองกอดทุกคนกอดกันแต่ถ้าทักทายก็เพื่อนผู้ชายหรืออย่างอื่นก็คงโบกมือละมั้งคะแบบเป็นไง
Hey guys, thanks for watching.
So I really enjoyed that video because I think it really does give a really clear understanding of what is the difference between general and specific knowledge, right? General knowledge, it tells us you're going to greet people in every culture. But that video demonstrates that the intricacies of that are very different depending on where you are. You heard kiss on both cheeks is custom in one place, but in China it would be very out of place, it would be very awkward. And so it is important to understand that there is a distinction between general and specific knowledge, and that the more we can go from general to specific knowledge, the more capable we are at communicating within that culture. The fourth component of competence is motivation. And this is going to be the set of emotional associations that are felt both prior to and during the communication. I like to think about this as like, why is the person communicating? What is the goal here, right? Or if you've ever heard the acronym WIFM, what's in it for me? And we're going to really dig into motivation specifically as we start to look at things like ethics and cultural appropriation, right? Why are you wearing that costume? Why are you wearing that attire? Is it to appropriate or is it to appreciate? And there is a difference, and it really comes down to what's the motivation. Why did they do what they did, and how can we explain that as a place of, some people come into interactions with a more negative or sinister motivation than others, and it's really important that we break that down and understand that that's a real thing that we need to think about within intercultural interactions. The last component, the fifth component, is skills. These are your actual performance abilities. These are your capabilities that you can use in a context and that would therefore be regarded as effective or appropriate. So if I were to try to communicate and I'm in a room full of only Japanese speakers and I only know how to speak English, I could use English in that room. I would be communicating in a way that is neither effective because it's not going to achieve my outcomes, and it's not going to be appropriate because it's not right for that environment, especially if I were to use like a yelling voice, right? A really loud, energetic, kind of my normal voice in that environment would be neither effective or appropriate. And so it's very important here to recognize that skills are going to be the things that you can do. How much do you understand nonverbal and verbal communication, right? How well can you put those into practice in a way that allows you to create that shared meaning around similar interpretations of symbols? So that's it in a nutshell. We have 5 components of competence that allow us to be more successful in our intercultural communication. Recall that the first one, context, is really looking at what is the situation surrounding the interaction, what is the information going on around it. This is going to be stuff like historical context or social context, etc., etc. Appropriateness, which is asking the question, is it right? And effectiveness, which is asking the question, does it work in achieving the desired outcomes? Knowledge, which we divide into general, which is just basic knowledge about cultures, right? Cultures in general. And then specific knowledge that is about a pinpointed or specific culture that I'm focusing on. Motivation is going to describe our emotional states, kind of our reasons or our goals that are kind of operating, that are leading us into these different interactions. And then our skills, which are our abilities, the actual things, the skills, the capabilities that we have to be and to communicate competently. So in this lecture, we did one very important thing, but it is going to last us throughout this semester. We broke down the 5 components of competence. And we did this to help us answer the question, how can we be more interculturally competent in our communication, with people who are different than we are. That is going to be everything for this lecture. I hope this lecture was instructive. I hope you found this worthwhile. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. If not, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.